I am so excited that you're here, as always. And today we're talking about hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. I can't say that many times fast. I can't even say it one time slow. Hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. So here's the thing. Your thyroid is in charge of producing thyroid hormones, and thyroid hormones impact every cell in your body. So if it's not working, you're not working. When the thyroid is not producing enough thyroid hormones, it's called hypothyroid. And when it's an autoimmune type of hypothyroid, that's called Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's is a type of hypothyroid. Okay, I just want to clarify that for those of you who don't know. Now, a lot of people know that the symptoms of hypothyroid are difficulty losing weight, intolerance to cold. But did you know that it could also affect with even bigger things? It can mess with bigger things in your body. It can mess with your heart. It can mess with your kidneys. And if left untreated, it can actually lead to death. No joke. The worst part is it's often misdiagnosed or diagnosed at a really late stage. So today's talk is about making sure you're getting the right test to find out if you have hypothyroidism, and if you already have Hashimoto's and if you have the diagnosis, to talk about ways you can manage it in addition to medications. So before we start, I always like to let you know how to reach me and my team. If you're watching us on Facebook, drop the word live. Let me know that you're here because I'm looking. If you're watching it later, drop the word replay. Let us know that you're watching it. It's really nice. Makes our day when you write the word replay. Trust me, we're looking. If you type the word change just about anywhere, it lets us know that you want the show notes and we will email them to you. If you're watching us on YouTube, hi. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's great. If you're listening to me on the podcast, I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt and my stethoscope is always red, and my wife bought it for me. And that's basically the only thing you're going to miss, because everything else, I just need you to listen to. Maybe you're taking a walk, maybe you're washing the dishes, but this is a good one, so pay attention. Whatever platform you're catching us on, don't forget to follow us on Instagram because we're funny. And if this speaks to you and resonates with you, please share it with the people that you love and let them become the game changers in their life. My name is Efrat Lamondre. Everyone calls me E or Dr. E, whatever you're in the mood for. And I invented the new method where we empower people to realize that their symptoms are not in their head. And we help you become the game changer in your life. So whatever platform you are on, join the conversation. Let us know you're here. We literally read every message. It is not going out into the vortex. We are watching. So let's start talking about hypothyroid. Of course, we have to do a few definitions. This is going to be a bit of a technical talk because it's thyroid. It gets technical. And I really want you to own this topic and really know what's going on. So for those of you who already know this, I'm sorry. But for those of you who don't, you're welcome. Okay, so what is your thyroid? First of all, where is it? It's a small butterfly-shaped gland right here in your neck. For those of you on the podcast, I'm pointing to the front of my neck. And that's in charge of producing your thyroid hormones. And like I said earlier, it is in charge of everything. It's your entire metabolism requires this thyroid hormones. You just need it to be on point. People with underactive thyroid, and we're going to talk about that means in a second, they'll have fatigue. They'll be cold all the time, weight gain, really hard time losing weight. Constipation is a big issue for people with thyroid issues. Depression. In fact, if you're depressed, one of the first things you should check for is find out if you have hypothyroid before you medicate for depression. You might feel like you're moving slowly. Your thoughts might be slow. Muscle aches, weakness, muscle cramps, dry, thinning hair. Sometimes people have headaches in the AM that then go away. These are all signs of hypothyroid, kind of classic signs of hypothyroid. But hypothyroid, that, believe it or not, is just the outside. It can also cause heart problems, kidney issues, nerve injury. It can cause significant pregnancy issues and issues with fertility. So if you're trying to get pregnant, your thyroid has to really be on point. And then, of course, as I alluded to, if you leave it completely untreated and it just keeps going downhill, it can lead to death. Now, there are several reasons why people can have hypothyroid, why it's underactive. But one of the most common is an autoimmune disease. An autoimmune disease, the body's attacking itself. And that's called Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's just means your thyroid isn't working. And the reason it's not working is because you have an autoimmune issue, which means your body is attacking its own thyroid. That's what Hashimoto's means. Your body is attacking a thyroid, and that is causing it to be sluggish. So not only is this an issue for the thyroid, right? But so you have this attack on the thyroid, which is autoimmunity, but it doesn't stop there, right? Because I just told you thyroid affects every part of your body. So this attack on your thyroid is an attack on every part of your body. And as we all know by now, if you have an autoimmune issue, you're probably going to get another autoimmune issue unless we get to the root cause. So you have an autoimmune issue. Without getting to the root cause, you're going to have more autoimmune issues attacking a gland that is really in charge of just about every system in your body. So it is a really big deal. And the numbers are also big. It's really common. Hypothyroid affects 5 people out of every 100 people over 12 years old in America. 5 out of every 100. 20 million people in America have some kind of thyroid issue. Women are 5 to 8 times more likely to have it, but of course it affects men as well. You're not out of the woods, sorry. But the reason I'm giving you these stats is so you understand that it's common, it's a big disease that can affect just about every part of your body. And because it's so common, it will mean that you probably know someone who has hypothyroid or thyroid issues. So now let's talk about how do we know, okay, E, you scared me. I got it. It's common. It's a big deal. How do I know if I have it? This, believe it or not, gets a little tricky, right? You would think like, diagnosing it, what's difficult? Take a blood test. Well, it turns out it is a little bit tricky. For this, we need a little bit of a biology lesson. Bear with me. I wish I could draw this out for you. By the way, many of my patients know that I do these amazing drawings. And when I say amazing, I'm being very sarcastic, of the thyroid and how it affects your body. So if you ever come in, remind me to draw it for you. It's in stick figures. It's phenomenal. Okay, so here's what you need to know. Your thyroid makes a thyroid hormone called T4, which then becomes T3. Okay, T4. If you have enough T4 in your body, it's good. It's called euthyroid, and everything is fine. Everyone is happy. Life is good. The problem starts when there's not enough T4. So that means your thyroid is not producing enough T4. That's the hormone. So it's not producing enough. So then the brain's like, oh, why aren't we producing enough, specifically the pituitary gland? And it's like, okay, it's time for me to wake up the thyroid and say, hey, thyroid, kick it into gear. You need to produce more T4. So it literally has to wake up the thyroid, stimulate the thyroid to say, hey, wake up. I need you to produce some more. The way it does that is with a chemical called thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. Okay, so let me recap that. If your thyroid is not producing enough T4, your brain is going to release TSH to tell the thyroid, wake up, produce T4. So this means if your TSH is up, that hormone from the brain to the thyroid, if it goes up, that means your brain is really trying to wake up your thyroid because your thyroid's underactive. So a high TSH means your thyroid is not active and your brain is trying to wake it up. It's like shaking it. It's like, come on, wake up. High TSH means your thyroid is hypoactive. So the simple test is just to test the TSH, right? If my TSH is high, obviously my thyroid is sluggish. It's sleeping. I have hypothyroid issue. What's the problem, E? Seems like a really easy way to diagnose things. But you know by now that if I'm talking about it on live, it's not simple. Something else has to be going on. Let's talk for a moment about something. I'm going to put a pause on the thyroid issue because I want to draw your attention to like a different disease because it's a bit of a metaphor and it will help you understand this. Let's talk about diabetes. Everyone has a basic understanding of diabetes. If you're diagnosed with diabetes today, it doesn't mean that yesterday everything was fine, right? It means you probably had years of pre-diabetes, right? So you know I'm talking about, whether it's you or your uncle or your aunt, they go to the doctor and they're like, oh my God, I have diabetes. And you're like, yeah, Aunt Jane and Uncle Johnny, the doctor's been telling you for years you've had pre-diabetes, right? Every year they go, there's a test for it. It's called an A1C. They go, they get tested, they get pre-diabetes. The doc tells them, hey, slow down your carbs, take it easy with the beers. I want you to prevent getting full-blown diabetes, right? So we're all kind of familiar with diabetes and pre-diabetes. Why isn't there a test like that for hypothyroid? Why isn't there like, okay, my TSH is high, I have hypothyroid. Is there a test that could tell me if I'm pre-hypothyroid? Well, it turns out that there is, but it's not usually used. And let me tell you about it. So Hashimoto's, we have to do a little biology lesson again. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. That means your body is actively making antibodies to the thyroid. Let's talk about antibodies, right? We know about antibodies for COVID. That means I was exposed to COVID. I have antibodies to COVID. Measles. I was exposed to measles. I have antibodies to measles. When your body is exposed to something, a foreign object, it creates antibodies to it. Okay. So when you have Hashimoto's, when you have an autoimmune issue for thyroid, it means your body is going to make antibodies to thyroid. So, and guess what? Your body's going to make these antibodies for years before the TSH goes up. So for years, your body will attack the thyroid before the brain finally realizes, hey, we're under attack, and releases that TSH. So we can actually see that you have thyroid issues cooking well before your TSH ever goes up. That's a really big deal. There is a test out there that we can see that you're going to have a TSH, a thyroid problem, if you don't intervene, almost like a pre-diabetes. And it's a really big deal. And guess what else? Your body is going to start showing symptoms of hypothyroid, even though the regular tests say you're fine. Okay, so I'm sure many of you listening to this know what I'm talking about. You walk around with the symptoms, you're tired or you're sluggish or you have brain fog or whatever your symptoms are. And everyone in your family has thyroid. Your aunt has it, your mom has it, your great grandma has it. So you know what thyroid feels like. And you go to the doctor's office and they keep telling you, you're fine. Your TSH is fine. Everything is fine. Go home. I'll see you next year. They're not wrong. Your TSH is fine, but your thyroid's not fine. It's producing the hormones right now, so your TSH is not getting elevated, but you're actually cooking an issue. And that's because the docs, the MDs, the NPs, they're not looking for the thyroid antibodies. So if you think that you have an underactive thyroid, or if there's Hashimoto's in your family and you have the symptoms, ask your provider for a thyroid antibody test. That will let you know that your thyroid is cooking. This is a really big deal. Now you're going to say, well, why doesn't everyone do this test? You know, if it exists, why are we doing it? We don't do it in primary care and conventional medicine because there's no medicine for it. There's no protocol. There's nothing we can do to help you in the conventional world if your antibodies are high, but your TSH is normal. You do nothing. You wait. You wait until the TSH moves up, and then you swoop in with medications. So for many docs, NPs, PAs, providers, it doesn't make sense for them to test these antibodies because they feel, hey, there's nothing I could do about it anyway. Why am I going to worry my patient? I'll wait for that TSH to go up, and then I'll medicate, and then I'll be able to help the patient. Again, there's never malice. The docs, there's no malice. This is just the way we're taught. We wait for that TSH to go up, and then we medicate. How do they medicate it? Let's talk about that for a second. And I'm going to put this up here on the screen. By the way, podcast, all this says right now is TSH, T4, T3, and antibodies. That's what it says on the screen. So how do they medicate? So again, remember I told you, if your thyroid's not active, it doesn't produce T4. So the medication is we give you a T4. Sometimes they give you T3. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the medication is basically to give you the hormone, the T4 or the T3, that your thyroid can't produce. And then the clinician says, I fixed it. You're great. Your TSH is awesome. I fixed it. Look at you. I brought your TSH from a 16 down to a 3. Everything is wonderful. But did they really fix it? Did they really fix it? No, it's not fixed. The body is still attacking the thyroid. The autoimmunity was never addressed. We didn't stop the attack by replacing the T4. We just helped the thyroid along, but we actually did nothing to stop the attack of the root cause. So that's what we have to talk about. And this is the difference between how conventional medicine handles thyroid and how functional medicine handles thyroid. Conventional medicine waits for you to need that medication and gives it to you. And that's not wrong. It's just not the whole picture. And functional medicine is asking, but why is my body attacking my thyroid to begin with? And what can I do to help fix it so that I don't keep having to up my meds? Right? I want to address the root cause. So this is what we're about. In conventional medicine, it's take a medication, see you next year. But in functional medicine, it's about what's going on. I just want to be clear before I continue on. Even though we're going to talk about the root cause, at no point am I telling you to stop taking your medication. You must continue your medication. If your thyroid already got to the point where it's not producing, you really, really need to take your medication and then implement the changes that we're going to talk about in addition to the medication. Because when we find the root cause, we won't be able to cure the Hashimoto's. I want to be really clear there, but we could stop it from getting worse. Okay, so let me cut to the chase. What is the root cause, E? I mean, you're talking for so long. What's the root cause? The root cause for most of you is your belly. By the time you already have Hashimoto's, you already have gut issues. Your microbiome is probably off, and you probably have a leaky gut. And if you've never heard these terms, microbiome and leaky gut, I need you to watch my lives, my podcasts. I talk about them all the time. Catch yourself up to speed because it is the biggest issue here. Your microbiome and leaky gut, and you already have inflammation in your gut. When people have leaky gut and inflammation, the inflammation doesn't stop in the belly. It starts to attack the body. It can attack the joints like rheumatoid arthritis. It can attack the skin like psoriasis, or it can attack the thyroid and Hashimoto's. So very first thing is that your belly is angry. That's the very first thing in the root cause of Hashimoto's. But the second thing, and maybe the most important thing I have to say for most people, is that Hashimoto's is directly linked to gluten. And for those of you rolling your eyes, if you don't think so, that's okay. This talk is not for you. But for those of you who are suffering, I need you to listen to me. When gluten enters this inflamed system, this inflamed body, the immune system sees it as a foreign object. Follow me here. This is really important because I'm going to explain to you the connection between gluten and Hashimoto's. Okay, so you eat your gluten. Your body sees it as a foreign object, and it begins to make antibodies to gluten. Okay, who cares? You make antibodies to gluten. I don't care. The problem is that gluten looks very similar to an enzyme in your thyroid. So when your body is making antibodies to gluten, it is making antibodies to your thyroid through a process called molecular mimicry. So when you're eating your sandwich with gluten in it, you are in that moment attacking your own thyroid. That's a really big deal. It's a strong, huge connection for people who have Hashimoto's. Gluten is a huge problem for them. Studies have showed that people with Hashimoto's, when they cut the gluten out, their antibodies calm down. And more importantly, their dosages of their medication start to normalize. Now, you can ask your doc, your clinician, to check for antibodies to gluten. It's a little problematic because it's not just one test. To really get a good gluten test, you have to include all the branches of the gluten protein. And most people don't know how to order that. So if you don't want to get the test, or if you can't get the test for whatever reason, just stop eating the gluten and see how it affects your numbers. Like, what do you have to lose? So you didn't eat a bagel for like a Sunday. It's fine. Okay. Stop eating the gluten and see what happens. The beautiful thing about functional medicine is implementing it is not going to give you side effects. I'm not recommending that you take an experimental medication. I'm just recommending that you lay off the bagels for a while. Okay. I got you. I'm looking at you. You know I am. I'm looking right into your soul. If you're feeling this and you're like, why is this a personal attack on me and my bagels? Because it is. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, so now autoimmunity, the belly, gluten. But of course, there are other potential triggers for any autoimmunity, not just Hashimoto's. So we always need to look at other potential triggers. I'm just going to mention them. Some people develop Hashimoto's after or during pregnancy, and that's due to large spikes and falls in estrogen. Some people because of heavy metals. mercury and other toxins. It could be after an infection. People who had a serious infection that could trigger the Hashimoto's. It can be stress. So it's important to look at all of it. But in my practice, I can't tell you how many people with Hashimoto's are sensitive to gluten and have antibodies to gluten and have the genes that make them predisposed to being gluten sensitive. And then once we remove the gluten, they just get better and their numbers start to normalize and their dosages start to stay stable. So it's amazing. And I just want to say this once again, this is not a cure. Once autoimmunity is turned on, it cannot be turned off, but it can be calmed down. It can be slowed down. So that means if you have antibodies, but you don't need medication yet, if you implement changes, you may prevent needing the medication. But if you already are medicated and you're already diagnosed, your TSH is up, you're getting medication, your antibodies are up, then our goal is to make sure that you stay at the same dosage, you don't fluctuate all the time, you don't keep needing to go up, and that would be your success story, that things are stable for you. So our success is stabilization, prevention of worsening, but not a cure. I want to be really clear on that. Okay. So, and this is true with, a lot of diseases, like even diabetes. Some people, if you don't make the changes, like diabetes, sorry, I stumbled there for a minute. I was looking at my notes, but I had to make this point a little bit stronger. If you're someone who is diabetic, I always go back to this because people know it's clear, it's kind of sugar. So if I'm eating a lot of sugar, I have diabetes, I take all this medication, right? And if I keep eating my ice cream or my pizza or my bagels, I'm going to need more and more medication. But if I pull back from that, I might be able to stabilize this and calm it down. So it's the same thing with thyroid. There are things that you can do to implement to calm things down so you don't have to keep needing more and more medication. All right. I'm pretty sure I drove this point home. It felt like it warranted 2 paragraphs when I wrote it out, but I think you got it. Now the question is, you told me how to diagnose it. You told me how it all works. You told me the root cause. How do I fix it? Let's talk about how fixing it. And this is going to sound similar to my other lives because it is. The first thing is take your medications. You can't mess with thyroid medications. You have to take them. Make sure that you stay on them and adjust them with a good clinician if needed, but stay on them. At no point should you just stop your medication, okay? So first things first, I need you on an anti-inflammatory diet, some sort of elimination diet. You must remove gluten. I hope that's clear by now. You must remove gluten. Dairy is also a big trigger. Corn, soy, sometimes eggs have to be removed. Sometimes yeast has to be removed, and sometimes legumes have to be removed. But the biggies for sure are dairy, gluten, corn, and soy. They got to go. And then if things aren't moving enough, you might need to go a little tighter and remove the egg, the yeast, and the legumes. But gluten and dairy have to go. I'm sorry. Of course, you have to get your sugar in control. If you actually are dealing with diabetes or insulin resistance, that has to be in control because that's super inflammatory and it's not going to work out for you. And of course, don't forget to put the good stuff in. I'm talking about getting rid of the bad stuff. But in my last podcast, I talked about how food is medicine. It's not just about removing, it's about adding the good stuff. So make sure you get microbiome diversity. If you don't know what that is, check out my lives. It's about getting the good and the bad bacteria into your belly. Super important. And believe it or not, you have to sleep, whatever it takes. Sleeping is really important to help your thyroid. Okay. You can't be pulling all-nighters and expect your thyroid to heal. You need to sleep. And everyone always asks me about supplements. So there are very specific supplements for thyroid. Vitamin D is a huge player in thyroid. You need it for the gene transcription of the enzyme. Who cares what the words I just said? I just wanted to impress you to let you know that vitamin D is really important for thyroid. You need selenium, zinc, and magnesium to convert T4 and T3. Again, technical, but I want to let you know it's really specific to thyroid. And of course, omega-3 as an anti-inflammatory. But remember, the supplements are only part of the story, okay? I don't want you out there eating bagels and McDonald's and thinking you're going to take these supplements and everything's going to be fine. No, you have to do the diet as well, the nutrition as well, get the bad stuff out, get the good stuff in, and then take the supplements as well. So just to recap, what we need to know for Hashimoto's, you have to get the right test. You need to find the root cause of why this whole thing started in the beginning. You have to change your nutrition and add supplements if you really want to gain control of your Hashimoto's. And I know this is a lot. And if you want to work with us, you want to reach out to my team, as always, you can reach out to us at The New Method. Don't forget that new is spelled with a K. And on every platform, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, we're checking for your messages, or thenewmethod.com. No matter where you decide, we want to help you become the game changer in your life because you always knew there was a better way. I will see you guys next week. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I put my energy into every single one of these. And if you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out last week's talk on food is medicine. And I said it that way purposefully. Check it out.